There is a story that an eager young man once asked a well-known woman of spirit what she thought God wanted him to do with his life. It is said that the woman responded first with just one word: love. And then she added, "And whatever you choose to do in life, be known by your love." There's a hymn that we'll sing this morning at the time of the offertory, which reflects the same thought. A familiar one. They'll know we are Christians by our love. It was written back in the late 60s by a Roman Catholic priest. But this idea of knowing a group by its love, this is what the early communities who dedicated themselves to following the way of Jesus were known for. Their love, or more to the point, the way that they loved. These followers of Jesus, of course, were not Christians. They were Jews. They were Jews who understood their fellow Jew Jesus to be the Jewish Messiah. So after his death and resurrection, these communities of Jews continued to follow the way of life that Jesus had taught and shown. It was this way of life that increasingly caught the attention of other Jews, as well as Gentiles, and spread the Jesus movement throughout their part of the world. In fact, there are ancient writings that indicate it was quite often pagans who remarked on the unusual self-giving love of these groups who followed Jesus. What these followers of Jesus were known for was not necessarily the warm, fuzzy, feel-good type of love. In fact, it was quite often a very tough love. It was the kind of love expressed by the Greek word agape, which is usually translated into love in English whenever we see agape in the New Testament. And it's this kind of agape that Paul refers to in the letter we read this morning that he wrote to the Christian communities in Rome. When he tells them that all of the various commandments are summed up in this phrase, love your neighbor as yourself, he's talking about agape. Agape, your neighbor as yourself. What this means, what the word agape refers to, is a kind of love that seeks the well-being of all and of all creation. Now, sometimes the words and actions required to seek the well-being of all do give us a warm, fuzzy feeling, especially when we do something like perform some act of kindness that is really needed, and the person we perform it for really is appreciative of it. That does give us a warm, fuzzy feeling. But a good bit of the time, the words and actions that it takes to seek the well-being of others, or to act on behalf of the well-being of others, or to speak on behalf of the well-being of others, quite often these words and actions are more difficult. One such example of when agape gets tough is brought in the passage we read from the Gospel of Matthew. Just read it, but just in case you've already forgotten it. It begins with Matthew telling us that Jesus said that if another member of the church wrongs you, then first go to that person, talk to him about it. And that if that doesn't work, then call a couple of witnesses together, hash through it again, talk about what it is with two other people to mediate. And then if that doesn't work, bring it before the whole church. And then if that doesn't work, finally he says, then let such a one be to you as a Gentile or tax collector. In other words, what traditionally was known in those communities as an outcast. Well, I can tell you that having been in parish ministry for more than 30 years, I've very rarely seen this process followed when there's a disagreement, if at all. And at the times I have seen it approximated, which usually are times when there may be some kind of issue between the ordained leader and the congregation, or perhaps when there are factions in the congregation fighting each other, and this process is somewhat followed. At those times, it does not usually seem to involve warm, fuzzy feelings. In fact, at the times I've seen it, It's a tough and agonizing process, and it's one that often leaves hard feelings on all sides. You see, when people have drawn themselves up into opposing sides, whether as individuals or as factions, the very idea that they are called to treat each other with the kind of respect and forbearance that agape requires seems to go right out the window. The truth is that whether we're talking about Christians in congregations or whether we're talking about Christians in relationship to the rest of the world, Christians have quite often been known for things quite other than agape love. In fact, as we glance back over history, there have been many times when the Christian response to those whom we consider to be wrong has been much worse than just treating them like a Gentile or a tax collector. Usually such times involve what the evangelical Christian writer Brian McLaren calls a remaking of Jesus into just about anything we like. And yes, I'm quoting an evangelical Christian writer, not a fellow Episcopalian. McLaren points out that we like a Jesus who hates the people we hate and likes whatever we like. So as he continues, Christians over the ages have been able to justify all sorts of unloving actions. He begins to list some of these. He says, for example, that these have included Christians acting on behalf of white supremacy. They actually burned crosses in people's yards. Christians eradicating to the best of their ability the Native American. Christians fighting for the right to own slaves. Christians slamming science and the discoveries of science, ranging from the order of the solar system to the evolution of creation. Christians organizing ways to get rich quick at the expense of others. And he says, at different times in history, there have been Christians against a whole slew of other folks, such as, one time or another, women, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, and of course, gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered people. McLaren's list includes these examples and more. And I imagine that we could come up with examples of our own, both large-scale social examples and small-scale personal examples, when we have witnessed or maybe even been part of Christians going at each other. No wonder that today, when asked to describe what Christians are known for, more than half of one undergraduate college class, a religion class, in a major United States university described Christians as literalistic, anti-intellectual, judgmental, self-righteous, and bigoted. Not a great list. But any Christians who are paying attention have an opportunity here. We have an opportunity to go back to our roots, back to basics, if you will. We have an opportunity to become what Jesus always said all of God's people, Christian and non-Christian alike, are intended to be, a people known for our love. We have an opportunity, as the song says, to be known for walking hand in hand, so to speak, with those who are not like us, Christian and non-Christian alike. We have an opportunity, as the song says, to be known for working side by side with those with whom we may disagree, sometimes even on major issues, religious and otherwise. I've seen this happen. I've seen it. Let me give you an example. Before I came here to St. Andrews, I was the rector of St. Luke's Episcopal Church, a very small, though actually about our size probably, inner city church in Knoxville, Tennessee. St. Luke's housed an interfaith food pantry in the rooms that we had at one time used for our Sunday school rooms. Yes, I said interfaith, not ecumenical. Because the food pantry not only served people of any faith or no faith, it was run by people of any and all faiths, as well as people of no faith. The food pantry was one of several founded by an Episcopal member of a very large Episcopal church in town. There was a North Knoxville food pantry, a South Knoxville food pantry, a West Knoxville food pantry, and an East Knoxville food pantry. We were the East pantry. On any given day, you would find working side by side to bag and distribute groceries Christians of all sorts and stripes, Muslims, Jews, atheists, agnostics, and an occasional Buddhist or Hindu. You would find Republicans and Democrats as well as independents, and a few people who, as a matter of some kind of personal principle that I never did understand, simply refused to vote. You would also find some of Knoxville's most wealthy and prestigious citizens talking and bagging groceries with recovering coke and meth addicts. You would find blacks and whites and Orientals and Hispanics and a couple of Native Americans. You would find elderly people who had no pension, mentally and physically disabled people who had no safety net, single mothers who had escaped abusive spouses or partners, and you would find children. Yes, children. Some the age of Ellie. What a perfect time for this example. Some of these children that you would find not only receiving food in the food pantry, but working in the food pantry, some of them were children of clients. But occasionally they were children from the Episcopal School of Knoxville, a school made up not only of Episcopalians, but also of Christians of all sorts, as well as some Muslims, Jews, and people of undetermined belief. Anybody and everybody was and is to this day welcome at the Episcopal School of Knoxville, where they are treated with respect. Some of the folks working in the food pantry received food, and some donated food or money to buy food. But day after day, they'd work side by side, showing to all of us what it looks like when God's agape love goes into action. Not always did everything run smoothly. Sometimes people got on each other's nerves, and a lay leader or a clergy person, the East Knoxville pantry, usually me, would be called in to help mediate things and reconcile whatever was amiss. But all in all, it worked. It worked amazingly well. And hundreds of households received food every week, and quite a number of people from those very same households helped make the food pantry go. As our Diocese of East Tennessee bishop at that time once said, "This is what the kingdom of heaven looks like." You know, we Christians are not the only group, religious or non-religious, that have an opportunity to be known by the way we love, by the way we respect, and work for the well-being of all people. Any group has this opportunity. And throughout history, several groups have taken the opportunity to presented them to bless the world with outstanding acts of love. Some of them have been Christian, and some of them have not. But we Christians, if we are to take seriously what it means to follow Jesus, have no real loopholes to escape through in trying to live up to the demands of agape love. Because to follow Jesus is to be known by the way we love, by the way we respect and work for the well-being of all, by the way we are with each other, and most especially by the way we are with those whom we think are wrong. May God give us the grace to be known by such love. Amen.